I'm going to cook some chili over a campfire. Right now I'm using a 20 quart Dutch oven. It's a 20 quart. This is a massive Dutch oven. This thing weighs like 40 pounds empty. So it'll hold a lot of food for a lot of people. First thing I'm going to put in is 3 pounds of lean ground beef. I'll cut up a yellow onion and put in there with the ground beef. Chili is a great food for while you're out camping. It's easy to do over a campfire. You can make big batches of it. It's just a great comfort food for whether you're at deer camp or just out camping or just have a large family gathering over. So this is a recipe my sister gave me, and I'm going to share it with you right now. I want to brown this hamburger up and cook those onions down a little bit. I'll throw some salt in there. I don't have an exact measurement on the salt. You just kind of salt it to your own taste. You don't have to put any salt at all in there if you don't want to. You need to keep stirring this meat so it doesn't stick to the bottom and burn. You got to keep an eye on your fire while you're cooking it. Make sure it doesn't burn down too low. You got to have enough heat to finish your dinner and maybe make a dessert afterwards. Something I want to keep an eye on are these tall flames right here. I don't want them licking up on the pot too hot, because I don't need that kind of flame to cook with. so I'll end up pulling some of the fire back off to the side, away from that pot, so I just have some nice coals to cook with underneath it. So I like to keep my fire going over on one side of the fire pit, and the cooking coals and cooking fire underneath the other side of it, and I can rake them back and forth as I need to. While I'm waiting on this meat to brown, I'm going to go ahead and start opening up some cans. So I'm going to have 3 cans of chili beans and then 3 cans of petite diced tomatoes. And for my chili seasoning, I usually buy just individual packs of chili powder, like the single serving size, the single pot size. But the store didn't have that this time, so I got the family pack. And it actually has, oddly enough, pretty much my sister's recipe right on the back of the bag here. Got 3 pounds of ground beef. Chili seasoning is 3/4 of a cup. That's this. 3 cans of diced tomatoes. I use petite diced tomatoes because I don't really like to bite into big chunks of tomato. And then 3 cans of, they say kidney beans, but chili beans, same thing. It's just the chili beans have a little seasoning in them. And then I add an onion to it. So if I had the small bags of seasoning, the normal size bags of seasoning, I would use 3 bags of the seasoning. But since I've got this, I'm just going to measure out 3/4 of a cup. As the meat cooks down, it's going to leave a lot of juice down in the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and let it cook all that juice off, rather than, normally when you're cooking something with hamburger, you cook it till the hamburger's done and then you drain off the grease. Well, this skillet is so heavy, or this Dutch oven is so heavy, if I put the lid on it to hold the meat in and then try to drain it, I run the risk of tipping the whole thing off into the fire. So it's easier just to let that grease cook off. So it looks like the hamburger's done. The onions need to cook a little bit more, but there's still some grease down in the bottom there. So I'm going to let it cook a little more before I put the other seasoning in. That'll help give the onions time to finish up and make sure everything's good and done before I start putting the seasoning and the beans and tomatoes in. Alright, it looks like all of the grease is cooked out of the bottom. So now I'm going to put the seasoning in and stir it up real good. So I need 3/4 of a cup of seasoning. There's a 1/2 cup. And there's another 1/4 cup for a total of 3/4 of a cup. Since I cooked all the grease out of there, I need to add a little bit of water so I have something to mix that seasoning up with. If you're measuring by the can full, I'd say about a 1/2 can of water, just enough to mix up all this seasoning and get the meat coated real well. Alright, so the seasoning is all stirred in. Now I'm going to dump the tomatoes in. We got 3 cans of tomatoes. And I want to add about 1 more can of water. So that gives me a total of 1.5 cans of water. I want to give this time to heat up before I dump the beans in. You kind of want your beans to be the last thing you put in, because the beans will tend to cook down and get real soft and mushy. So let me give that time to heat up. So it's starting to boil around the edges there on that side where the flame is at. So I'm going to go ahead and dump the beans in. Drop the whole can in there. When you put the beans in, make sure you pull the can out. I'm going to give that time to heat up. Ideally, what you would want to do is at this point cover it and just let it simmer on a low heat for like an hour. Just let it stay warm for about an hour, and that'll give all those spices and seasonings a time to mix. And that's why leftover chili tastes so much better than chili the first day you cook it, because the seasonings and stuff have had time to mix together. So if you've got the time, just let it simmer for 45 minutes or an hour. If not, honestly, once it gets hot, you can eat it just like this. It's still going to be delicious, but the leftover chili the next day, or the chili that simmers for an hour or so, is going to taste a lot better. So before I dish it up and call it completely done, I'm just going to let it simmer here for at least 15 minutes. Make sure it's good and hot and everything's thoroughly mixed. And then we'll eat it. Now when you're letting it simmer for a while, especially over a campfire where you don't know exactly what the temperature is, be sure and stir it frequently so that it doesn't stick to the bottom and burn. Because that'd be horrible if you spent this much time and effort on a big pot of chili and end up burning it. So just stir it every few minutes, just to make sure nothing's sticking. I'm going to give you a pro tip here. The best way to eat a bowl of chili is over a bowl full of Fritos. So just throw that chili right on top of your Fritos. And then we're going to douse it with cheese. And cover it all up with some cheese. Now that's how you make campfire chili. That's a good looking bowl of chili right there.